next session now. Welcome back, participants. Today we have with us Ms. Salome Yasudas. She is a food and nutrition security expert. Salome ma'am, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. So to give a brief introduction of Ms. Y. Salome, she is a master's in food and nutrition from PJT SAU in 1984 batch. She has worked with more than a decade with biodiverse farmers, especially with women, at Farm Science Center of DDS KVK, that is Deccan Development Society, which is in Zahirabad in Telangana. She is a subject expert in gender in water nutrition at FAO National Project, Andhra Pradesh, Farmer Managed Groundwater Systems Project in 6 districts of Andhra Pradesh. Salome continues to work as a consultant with many organizations in India and has also worked in international agencies like IDRC Canada, IIED UK, McGill University Canada, Institute of French Pondicherry, and even organizations like FAO and IFAD. She was also with the Center for Agrarian Studies in NIRD for a brief while. She has traveled extensively to 25 countries on professional assignments and is a life member of Nutrition Society of India and served IUNS Task Force on Indigenous Peoples' Food Systems and Nutrition since 2001 to 2012. She has many books, articles, and many documentary films to her credit. She has published extensively with FAO, IDRC, IIED, and Down to Earth. Several of our manuals are also there with us, and we will share some of her work with you after the session is over. So we will hand it over to you, ma'am. You can share the PPT from your screen using the screen share option and start the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. You are audible.
Just a minute. Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. You can see the screen now?
Yes, ma'am. If you are doing full, yeah, we can see.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Ruchira, and also welcome to the participants. Since this is the last session of the day, it's a challenge to concentrate. But let us see how we can make it more interesting and also more participatory. So this is a village level planning and monitoring for nutrition sensitive agriculture and women empowerment. Two topics are clubbed together. Let us see how far we can do. So by this time you might have heard about participatory monitoring. It's in a simple words, we can say that those who are enjoying the project or those who are enjoying the program should be able to monitor. Should be able to monitor also the program, and that is the entire community should get involved, and then that becomes the participatory monitoring. Instead of doing some one or two people or officials, it is better that we get involved the local groups or the beneficiaries who are enjoying the project should also be able to monitor. So participatory evaluation, and also to evaluate how far they have reached their goals, how far they have reached their indicators, what are they doing, what examples they have achieved. All these can, and also to look into the project, their goals, their achievements or objectives are to redefine, to reorganize. So to pause and to think, the participatory monitoring and evaluation will definitely help. And also in order to that, attitudinal changes in the local community about their role and sense of responsibility. It is not that always the targets like 1,000 beneficiaries or 500 women or 300 children, not the numbers alone. What it has bring in attitudinal change or behavioral change or responsibilities, what it has changed within also. We should take the important aspect of monitoring and evaluation is to look in within ourselves. That is, each beneficiary or each participant program stakeholders are able to look into themselves or at others and recognize the responsibility and also what has changed in themselves. And if people have gained confidence in their ability to undertake new activities, the current program or the current scheme or current project should enable the people to take up new challenges. Okay, we have done this, we are happy, and we are enabled now. So let us see, let us progress, let us take another step ahead. So that type of confidence building should happen through our monitoring and also through our evaluation. And lessons about people's capacity, extent of participation, community responsibilities. This is another important area where we have to include when we are doing a monitoring or evaluation, because the people's capacities. When we start a scheme or a project or any program, we think that we will have so many doubts. Are people capable of, can they carry these, or they need much more capacity building? So very skeptically we will start a program, but at the end of the program or in the middle of the program, when we pause and look at, people might have increased their capacities and their confidence levels might have raised, so their participation will definitely increase. And with the increase of the participation and with the increase of the realization of the benefits, they might feel responsibility also. So both the joy of a program and the responsibility that brings in, and the capacities that are built to take up new programs, challenging themselves, is also very, very important when we are looking at monitoring and evaluation, and also especially when we are doing participatory things. Then community-based programs are most successful when community is helped to, especially when we are talking about village level monitoring. This is the we can say it's the basic unit as a village, as a community. So when we are talking about the village level, where we have to see that, identify what is already available in the community. That is resource appraisal. Usually, because you are all extension officers and agriculture people and also involved in the government for a long time, you must be knowing this. But that information that we are knowing this shouldn't be an obstacle. Every time it is good to do resource appraisal. So what has changed from the last thing, or what is necessary? So resource appraisal from the entire community, at least from 10% of each sample size should be taken, and they should be consulted to have the resource appraisal. Then define their problems. So using the problem tree, we can define their problems. So how do we see these discussions, focus group discussions, or some role plays? And especially here we can do men separately, women separately, and men and women together, and also with the children and adolescents in the same way. So when we are defining the problems, we should include entire community. That means entire community means not only the different hierarchies, but also different age groups, also very, very important, because we are doing this for nutrition, food and nutrition. That is the nutrition sensitive agriculture. So this is important because all age groups should be included. So problem tree, maybe a children's problem is different, adolescents problem is different, and women's problems are different. So it's better when we are doing a problem tree to involve everybody with a mixed group, or if possible with different groups also, and identify their needs. So what are the basic immediate needs? So identification of the need also. Seed may be an immediate need, fertilizer may be an immediate need, or technology may be an immediate need, or a knowledge may be an immediate need. So what are the identify their needs and define what they want to achieve, their goals. And also we can also involve the communities to what they want to achieve. Okay, nutrition sensitive agriculture. Actually, nutrition sensitive agriculture is a term came maybe a decade ago, but Indian agriculture is always nutrition sensitive agriculture. When you look at the mixed farming, the mixed farms gives us pulses. Next to that stands the millet or millets. Next to that stands vegetables. Next to that stands oil seeds. So if a rabi crop in dryland agriculture, if you see, it will have linseed oil, linseed, and it will have jowar. It will have chickpea. It will have safflower. So I immediately you could make out 4 varieties, and in between so many uncultivated greens prop up. So this is what nutrition sensitive agriculture is, which provides entire nutrition to the family. So how do we, what do you want to achieve? Do you want to achieve mixed farms, or do you want to achieve a concentrated crop or fortified crops? What you want to achieve? How do you want to see market or cash or kind, or what your plate should be full, and everybody in the village should be having a nutritious food. So what you want to achieve, that has to be very clearly mentioned, the goals. Then plan how they are going to achieve their goals and tackle their problem. That is developing an action plan. Okay, now we know the entire resources what we have, and what is the problem, what is the need, where we wanted to go from this problematic situation, and how we want to reach that situation. So this is developing an action plan. So all these steps will help us to look into nutrition sensitive agricultural plans. But because of COVID-19 and the lockdown, and the situation is not very good, these may not be very immediately we may not do. But there are ways and means to do these kinds of plans. Nowadays, everybody has a smartphone and mobile. So, and also the data already you have collected for your different schemes and projects like watershed management or any other things, crop plans, crop water budgeting, whatever program you may be having, the data which already you have can also act as a secondary level data immediately, and also you can work out. And also, because this is a village level plan, you can identify key informants, and then with them you can sit and have a plan. But usually if it is non-COVID period, these steps will definitely help you to do a good plan and a community-based program and a successful program. So usually when we are talking about the nutrition sensitive agriculture, we need to think about go foods, grow foods, glow foods. So once you go foods are energy giving foods. That is the staples, the millets, wheat, rice, the maize, whatever is the staple food in our area. So how do we look at the place for a staple food? Then grow foods. Grow foods are which builds bodybuilding material, or which helps in the growth. That means that is why grow foods. Grow foods are protein foods. That means pulses. And when we are talking about the crop, pulses, all varieties of pulses have 24% of protein in them. So when you have a proteinous food, that means when you have pulses in your fields, you will get protein, and that protein comes into your plate, and then you have a grow foods. So you have energy giving foods, you have grow foods, protein foods, and then glow. If you are eating the right amounts of energy and protein, you will not glow. But you need micronutrients also, that is vitamins and minerals. So these vitamins and minerals comes from greens, vegetables, and fruits. So your entire field should have these three kinds of varieties of foods. That is how you plan nutrition sensitive agriculture. So in a village, when you are planning, you can choose according to the soil variety, according to the farmer's capacity and interests, whether they want to go foods, whether they want to go grow foods, or whether they want to grow foods, or together also there is a chance of growing together all these foods. Then what are the key action points that are required? So mapping food, how do we plan? Actually planning nutrition sensitive agriculture at the village level is mapping food sources. So how do we do this? Mapping food sources means what are the food sources that are available in the village? If it is if it is a classroom session, we would have enjoyed doing this by map. But now let us see what are the food sources we can identify in a village. Fields, forest, ration shop, hotel, kitchen, livestock. So and water bodies, a small pond or a stream or a tank. So all these are some kind of food sources. But in this, for example, a shop and a hotel and the ration shop where we get PDS rice are also food sources, but they are dependent. They are not independent. Somebody has to grow, send their food here and sell. This becomes a food source. But primary food sources are the basic food sources are fields, forest, water bodies, streams, neighborhoods, kitchen gardens. So where you can grow. So mapping food sources is if you map all the food sources and identify each food source and what are the problems, how we can make best efforts to make it convert into nutrition sensitive agriculture, that will help us. That is what next point is, identifying suitable areas for nutrition sensitive agriculture. Here I am including even ponds and water bodies also, fish, because in rice fields, if the fertilizers are less and if it is organic or if it is a non-pesticidal management methodology, then you will have a lot of snails and also crabs and many varieties of fishes will come in the fields. So it's not only the plants, but also in agriculture also can include these three varieties of foods. Then preparing inventory of available resources within the village. The resource map or the resource appraisal, same thing you can like an inventory, you can list out all the resources that are available. Then preparing inventory of available resources from other sources, including government. What is available within the village? What is available from the government? There are so many schemes and programs that enables the villages. But as a single person, we may not be aware of, or we may not. When we go as a single person, the response may be not very good. But as a village as a whole, as an organized groups, they can always go and demand their slot or a portion from the in government schemes. So it is important not only with the village, from the village, but also outside what are the available. Some NGOs may be working to here and there. Some corporates are looking for good villagers or want to help. So that type of sources also we need to include and identify. Then once we do all this, we know what is lacuna. What is the need, where we have to get some training inputs. So then if the village decides to reduce their pesticide input in agriculture, so they have to have a non-pesticidal management training program. So they can approach a department or an NGO or a local people who are already practicing non-pesticidal management, like that. So training inputs what type of training we need, what type of inputs we wanted to have. Is it a like any other government agencies are also there, like Krishi Vignan Kendras, RARS, any agriculture research or fisheries department, which is close to the village, which falls under the and in that area within the reach. They can always go and ask for the training input help. Once we know what we want, then we can ask what we want. So that's another important area. Preparing a training calendar. And also here, it is very, very important that to prepare a training calendar for our own village. Because we have to take the consideration of men and women participation. So when we are preparing the calendar, we have to ask the women when they are free, what is the time that is they were free, and they can allot or some time for the training, and also the venue, the place, everything, that the resource persons, the resource materials. In some areas, the blackboard will be very high. Nobody can reach or write on that. So though they are very simple things, it all matters. And sometimes men are requested to sit in the front rows and women sit in the back. They lose their interest because, and there will be some hijackers in every training program or a meeting who always talk. So, and who dominate the entire group. So how do we manage those kind of things? So all this should be taken into consideration while we are preparing a training calendar, and to get a good place suitable for men and women, and the venue, and also timings, and the method of training program, and everything, including a film show or a small clipping. It will be very, very make the session alive and interesting, and also allow the people to speak up and to talk and clarify their doubts. It has to be an interactive session to make it more live and more encouraging. Then identifying resource person. This is also another important area where sometimes we will have like Jinda Tilsma, all-in-one solution. That's not good, because the people will get bored seeing the same face again and again. We can also identify the resource persons from our neighboring villages who have excelled in their own work. Some may be good at manure preparation, some may be good at decoctions, leaf extractions preparation, or some may be good at putting into government schemes, connecting the government schemes or something like that. So each person will have their own expertise. So identifying the resource persons is also very, very important, and getting the local resource persons will be very, very helpful, because that will give them more confidence and the belief what they are talking and what they are speaking, because there is always a scope for them to visit their farm or talk to them, interact with them, and then build. It will become a challenge, and they can build their own nutrition sensitive agriculture farms. So these are the some key action points if we are planning with the villages. But in this COVID situation, we need to think a little bit differently, and maybe all things we may not follow, but creatively we can think of charts, posters, clips, or short films as a resource materials. Then improving food production, because once you start nutrition sensitive agriculture means we have to improve the food production. For example, I'm just giving a small table like soil erosion. If you have a problem, you identified a problem of soil erosion. What are the solutions that are at hand? And soil infertility. How can we increase the soil fertility? Lack of water. So this is everywhere. I think these are all very, very common problems that can be that appear at every stage. Lack of land in urban areas, lack of money, lack of labor, pest problems, lack of security. Okay, you grow, and if you are growing millets alone, the birds will come and eat away all the millets. So how do you manage this unexpected problem, security problem, or wild animals problems? So maybe anything. So it is better we discuss the problem and also come with the possible solutions. Already we need not invent every solution by ourselves. We can also access information from others who have achieved and who have overcome those problems. That will make our life easy rather than we ourselves again and again digging a solution for ourselves. And then when we are talking about the nutrition sensitive agriculture, leveraging agricultural policies and programs to be more nutrition sensitive. Any scheme government is announcing or any program that is coming into our village, we should ask them, is it nutrition sensitive? Does it aid in nutrition? So that type of mindset we have to, attitude and mindset we have to develop and train ourselves to look everything in a nutrition point of view. Then reinforcing diet diversification towards a nutrient-rich diet. So our diet, if you look at our diet, if you close your eyes and think of what we ate today, maximum we can see 2 to 3 colors: white rice, yellow dal, some sabji, green. That's all. But if our diet has to be diversified, means it has to have greens, vegetables, roots, fruits, millets, all those kind of things. But we may say, where is the money? But there are sources like forest neighborhood, uncultivated greens, mushrooms. There are so many other sources which diversify our food. So indication of color in our plate is also one of the dietary diversity indications. So when we are looking at our fields also, all monocrops, only one color. We need to diversify our fields so that our meals and our diet can be diversified. And then government also provides different public food systems, that is in residential schools, in our own midday meal. Every village has a midday meal, ICDS ration, whatever it may be, the public food systems, PDS, whatever may be. We may have to look into diversifying our food basket. How can we include inclusive food basket? What can be included more and more? Example, for example, our ICDS, the kitchen. Anybody can walk with a handful of greens and contribute to the kitchen. That doesn't need any effort. So by adding our greens to the diet of the children, it will increase the micronutrient contribution. So in these small efforts, and which are easy, which are within our reach, we can always train our villages to plan such kind of things. Then while planning, all this has to be inclusive. And also when we are talking about the empowerment of women through nutrition sensitive agriculture, this is a very like empowerment can be defined as access and control of resources. So when we have access, many times we have access, but we don't have control over the resources. Sometimes it can be a reverse case also, but mostly access will be there, but we cannot control. See, you can enter a forest and you can bring the your food items, like you can get mushrooms, greens, or something like that. But suddenly one day the forest will be closed. They say the forest, the government can declare it no entry for locals. So your access and control both are gone. That is why empowerment is defined as an access and a control over resources. How do we tackle such things, and how do we achieve, especially in the case of women? So when we are talking about a program, we have to have a gender sensitive indicators. Gender sensitive indicators, gender is not just women, but men and women. But when we talk about women, gender, we have to talk about women more, because women's numbers are very less. In any occasion, in any program, in any participation, at any level, women will be very less. That is why when you're talking about the gender, automatically we will speak about the women. It doesn't mean that, but when men are less, when men are also deprived in some areas, it is the men and women. Justice. justice, equity, equality. All these terms are there, but in practicality, how well we fare. For example, we'll take a small practical indicators. Mobility. Does our program improve the mobility, economic security? Is there any small supplementary income or a raise in the income? Ability to make small purchases. Can, because of the income, the women has a liberty, our children has a liberty to make small purchases. Ability to make larger, from there they move to larger purchases. Involvement in major decisions. What type of crop you wanted to grow? What type of seeds do you want to take? Seeds from farmers or from multinational company or GM seed, biofortified seeds, or your own traditional varieties? This is a major decision. So who is taking such type of decisions? Relative freedom from domination and violence within the family. So how do we tackle this? And also political and legal awareness. Are we legally and politically aware? Because of TV and because of the social media, and also because of the WhatsApp and other things, we are aware. But we need to get the right messages. Are we aware of through right messages or wrong messages? That's also another important aspect. But we can always see how the political and legal awareness, because we can see in Gram Panchayat, after this 33% amendment came, so many women came into the power. And when they were elected as ward members and as sarpanchas and upasarpanchas, many of them laughed what these women can do, how can they learn, they are at home, they are not literate. But the capacity building, a large capacity building, huge training programs have happened with the NARD, actually NARD PR. And so many NGOs have contributed in capacity building of the women. And now you can see they are the rulers of the villages, and the actual power is with them. And they are able to do so much work, wonderful work. So political and legal awareness comes from the participation in public protests and political campaigning. Many times we think that these are not good, but as an individual, you have a freedom to choose. So if they wanted to do some protest against chemical inputs in agriculture, or against GM crops, or something related to their own nutrition, they should have a liberty and freedom to express their own opinions. So if these are a few things which can be measured easily, and you can also think of our nutrition sensitive agriculture program, or our capacity building programs, our training programs. Does they enhance any of these? For this, you can have a before the project or the scheme starts, you can have a baseline, and then you can add what the midterm and surveys, and that can give you a picture where you are standing from where to where. Then gender sensitive indicators like production, resources, income, leadership, and time. So there is a scale, and if you are really like to measure, you can go through this very slowly, and also you can self-explanatory the scale. So you can see where your participants stand at the end of the program or in the middle of the program, and how they can be brought up, how they can be empowered. Then for anything to success or whatever, we need some indicators. So, but our indicators, if you are very ambitious that next day or tomorrow or end of the project, the program, empowerment will come and women and men are empowered, not like that. But we have to be a good, though we have ambition, and though we are very encouraging results, but still we have to be careful. So indicators should go beyond recording the number of female beneficiaries who have been reached by a program. Usually when we ask, do you have a gender sensitivity or gender lens or in this program, immediately they'll say, yes ma'am, this many 500 women participated, 400 women participated, for 300 girls and 400 boys, like that. But numbers, it should not be end of itself. Track the progress towards eliminating the discriminatory social norms that prevent rural women and girls from fulfilling their potential to improve nutrition. So it is important how we track the progress. Throughout our program or project or a scheme, we have to track what made them change, what achieved through this program in their empowerment elements. Maybe academic empowerment, mobility empowerment, or freedom empowerment, thinking empowerment, or whatever may be. So how they have, that is also important apart from the numbers. Then, because this is ours is a nutrition sensitive agriculture and it is related to nutrition, it's not only that empowerment comes from the social and behavioral changes and attitudinal changes. We have to have some concrete scientific based evidence, that is biochemical indicators, like what is the micronutrient deficiency they were having. For example, iron deficiency anemia, vitamin A deficiency, and also iodine deficiency. So before starting a project, before starting the scheme, we can take a baseline of anemia, and also at the middle of the project and at the end of the project, if you take how many are free from anemia or how many have improved their hemoglobin levels. So this is a little cost, includes a little cost, but nowadays I think because of the Asha Didi, ICDS and other programs, this may not be a very difficult. But if it is there, it will be very good, and people will believe in nutrition sensitive agriculture, and it can act as an encouraging element and with a evidence in the hand. And for the children and for women, we can take low, like stunted, wasted and overweight. These are available from our ICDS centers. Most of the centers record these things, stunted and wasted together, and overweight children. And this will help us to see the baseline as well, and after the improved nutrition, and what is that changed. Is it increased or decreased? How, in what period it has decreased from stunted and wasted children? Number of children became normal or optimum level of nutrition. So these indicators, the anthropometric indicators, are very easy, and they are available from the ICDS center. So this project any project which is working on nutrition sensitive agriculture should have these indicators as a baseline, so that it gives encouragement to the communities. When a children is underweight, and when you tell the mother after 2-3 months or 6 months or 8 months, your children is optimum weight, you can see the smiling and satisfaction in the mother's face, and the health of the child improving also. So these indicators will and their involvement in the program, in the project, can be enhanced by the evidence from these indicators. Then considering using and also not only these for the children and for the small below 5-year-olds, and also anemia for adolescent girls and women, but we can also, for as a family, we can also take the minimum dietary diversity of women reproductive age. That is, there are 11 food groups. We can, just by ticking the food groups consumption, we can take this dietary diversity scores of a family, and we can take this as a baseline, and at the end of the day, end of the project or middle of the project, we can review where do we stand. Then Women's Empowerment in Agriculture Index is also available. But I think this will be more work for you. If it is anybody is individually interested to do, I recommend this. Otherwise, minimum dietary diversity for women of reproductive age in the can be a family, for a family also. That will help you a lot. So don't burden with too many indicators, because though at the beginning of the project that will be very enthusiastic and very easy, but when you are doing midterm review or at the end of the project, gathering this information, especially at the end of the project, everybody enthusiasm will slow down, thinking that okay, the project is over, so let it over, let us think about another project. So those spirits will not be there when you started a project. So be careful in selecting the indicators, simple indicators, but evidence-based indicators will help you. So these are the some reference materials. Living Farms is an organization in Orissa. They work a lot on children. Thousands of villages they have worked with the children through dietary diversity, improving their nutritional status. So if you are interested, please go through their website. And FAO has a very good manual, Healthy Harvest Training Manual. That is also very, very good material. You can always go through that. It gives a very clear step-by-step plan. And I have given some enhancing the effectiveness of age to nutrition pathways, and also FAO books also. So these are some of the reference materials which you can go through when you have leisure time and you want to enhance your own knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for the session.